This is the April 24th, 2017 meeting of the Auburn Board of Selectmen. The meeting is being recorded. Is there anybody in the audience recording the meeting tonight? Looks like nobody. Can we stand and all salute the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We have nothing on public comments for tonight. We have our first hearing at 7:10, so what I'd like to do is move up item 5C, and that's the vote on the recommendation for the annual town meeting warrant articles, 15 and 18 from the school department.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Thank you. Okay. Cecilia, would you please come up and join us? Just kind of let you. Just go ahead and just make something. Oh, thank you, Lionel.
Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah, there was some discussion at one of our last meetings about this, and maybe you can reflect, put some light on it, shed some light on it for tonight.
Sure. Thank you for having me. Do you want to start with questions, or do you? I tried to put together a memo to explain in further detail what we were looking to. Basically, what we'd like to do is establish the revolving account now. Just we don't have any monies, so to say, to put into it at this point, but we need a vote at town meeting to establish the actual fund. The school committee has supported this going forward, and we need a vote at the town meeting. From that point on, we would work very closely with the town, with Town Manager Jacobson and CFO Kasanovitz, and work together on trying to figure out how to set it up and follow the guidelines of the Department of Education, elementary and secondary education, and Department of Revenue, which they've put together some guidelines to follow. So.
I guess I'll open it up for questions to Mr. Carpenter.
Thanks for coming in.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Generally, I'm in favor of it. I'm just concerned about how we're going to fund it, because I don't feel that we should be establishing an outside article for this. This should come from the school budget. I couldn't find anything online, so if you can forward us the guidelines that DESE and DOR, because both sites I found like a little description.
It's relatively new. They just, the governor signed it in August 9th, and it was put into effect November 7th of this past year, 2016. So it's relatively new. Districts are looking to move ahead with this because it's a great opportunity for the town and the school department to work together to try to put aside for those times when you have an unexpected move in. We all know that special education is a very volatile, issue. I mean, we've just recently had some concerns where we had to come to increase our budget this year, and so we're looking to try to move forward in a positive direction. We feel like just by establishing the fund, just to get it established, and then we could work together and talk about where we could come up with those funding sources. That was our basic aim tonight. I know that prior to my time here, the town and the school department were very proactive, and I was very impressed to find that they did put aside $100,000 in a special education article to be used in those types of cases. In looking forward to fiscal year 18 and speaking with CFO Kasanovitz and Town Manager Jacobson, Dr. Burnell and I, and Dr. Bouzet, we've discussed the issues that have come forward that we will be utilizing that $100,000 article in our budget for next year, in addition to the increases. So we're trying to look to establish something that will keep, will help us move forward down the road. And I think as far as the school district, we looked very hard to try to find other avenues where this was originally, the 100,000 was originally established at the Maytown meeting in 2010. That's when you originally put that, the $100,000 article there, and we've not used that. We've, tried really hard to save that. That was kind of our rainy day. And so I think the push for us was, if we're using it this coming fiscal year 18, that we're concerned that we don't want the school or the town to feel that they are going to kind of be uncovered as far as, something, if we do have more move-ins or more outplacements. We've been really trying to proactively keep our students within district whenever possible to reduce our out-of-district costs. But it's just certain placements are very heavily, they're very expensive, and then transportation to those placements as well is a big issue. So,
Now, if I could, as I've read this, it isn't just for outside placements, though. This could be used for any unanticipated special ed need, correct?
well, we're basically looking at it as more for tuitions, out-of-district tuitions, and tuition, transportation for those out-of-district tuitions, and that's what we're actually using the 100,000 for fiscal year 18 towards those costs. It wouldn't be for everyday budget. It wouldn't be part of our budget. And some of the things that are positive about it is once it's voted on in statute and is accepted by the town, that the Board of Selectmen, the school committee can move forward and say that we'd like to use that at some point, and they can vote with a majority vote, and then it would move on to the Board of Selectmen, and the Board of Selectmen would decide, is this a valid reason, to use it? And we're not looking to use it for anything outside of extraordinary expenses, because we usually try to be very conservative about our budgets and to look at, from year to year where our placements are and who will be aging out. We've had some some special education placement students aging out, so that's been a benefit, but you never know who's moving in or what they may require for placements. So that.
I have one more, Mr. Chairman, if I could. Has the school committee set any guidelines? Have they set any policy? They've approved asking for this article. Have they set any guidelines for the administration on the school side as to what this should be used for? You're saying that it's your intent to use it this way. And granted, yes, there's this extra little measure of,
right.
If you want to even assume that that's something that the board would say to the school committee, no, we don't think that your business, so we're just going to say, no, you can't take that money.
They haven't specifically set aside a policy for it. I know that that's their general feeling, is that with using the 100,000, we were kind of concerned about being, the town and the school department being, left open to whatever could possibly happen with move-ins. But we want to work closely with the town to establish how this should be used, and we feel very strongly. It specifies and I will send you the literature that I did get from DESE explaining, and I'm not sure if did you pass that on to the information that I'd given you from Department of Education on what they had put forward on how it could be used, that type of thing. But it specifically says it should be used for the transportation and tuition for out-of-district costs, and that's basically what we plan to do. But we'll work very closely with the town to make sure that that's what it's used for. We don't want to use it if we don't have to, and I feel like we've been very diligent, not myself because I've just come on board, but the town and the school have been very diligent about saving that money and not utilizing it because we didn't need it, and trying to find other avenues to support our special education costs.
Mr. Berthew.
I appreciate you coming in. I guess I'm just kind of confused as to the point of if we have the need, the town has to find a way to come up with the money. If we set it aside into a general fund or whatever, and we, for like the 100,000, whatever fund we put that in, and we're utilizing that this year, but we can use it for more than just special education. I guess I don't know why we have to have a separate fund.
It shouldn't be used for anything other than special education. It's a special Education Stabilization Fund.
Then what?
And the article that was put forward, the 100,000, was for special needs only, and that's.
Yeah, this is a restricted reserve account, can only be used for special ed needs. Basically, it's for equivalent to our contingency or our reserve account for any extraordinary and unforeseen expenditures relating to special ed. So there are times, such as FY18, when there were unanticipated costs that quite honestly became known in January after the budget was already approved by the school committee and submitted for consideration. It was at that point that they went back and had to reconsider a 3% increase that ultimately went up to a 4.5% increases to provide for these additional costs. I think similar to the outside article that we supported and established in 2010, provided a backstop or a safety net for these costs that were not known in any given year. Fortunately, we were able to carry that over from year to year without utilizing it. This is the first year, quite honestly, that these expenses were significant to the extent that we actually have to tap into that.
So through the chair, if we've already have this, why are we putting another fund, having it called something else? We've already established it. We've already made it a precedent in town. We used it, or we're going to use it. We need to find the way to replenish some or all of that. But why do we need to approve yet another fund and try to figure out or have the money, I don't understand what we would be doing any different other than having a certain fund.
Okay, let me take a crack at that, and I don't want to speak for Cecilia, but I think this gives the Auburn School Department some flexibility going forward to earmark any potential savings in any given year's operating budget and putting it into this reserve account at year end. That didn't exist prior to this legislation being approved. So they can appropriate or recognize savings up to 2% of net school spending on an annual basis. That being said, the FY18 net school spending is almost $24 million. They would be able to set aside up to $479,000 in FY18 if that money did become available. Quite honestly, it's an opportunity to sweep one-time savings into this account to provide for a rainy day for future years' special need expenditures. The subsequent fiscal year, you can only provide up to 2%, not cumulative, but 2% of next school spending. So for instance, if it's next year 25 million and say it's 500,000, then they would only be able to put an additional $21,000 into that account, not an additional $500,000.
So is the 2%, 3% only if we open it this year?
No, the 2%,
Or is it the first year that we open this new fund?
no, the 2% factor applies every year.
It's across the board. It doesn't accumulate.
Yeah.
If you put, like, say you voted to put the whole 2%, not that we would, but I mean, if you voted to put the whole 2%, that's what we'd have to keep it as. Now, net school spending does increase year to year, but it would be a minor amount. It wouldn't, like, be another 2%. Like, that was one of the questions that we had and we asked, and it's just across the board 2%, and that's how they've laid it out for every district, for school districts, that it's to 2% amount of your net school spending. So. But normally what would have happened in the past is that monies, if we had money in our budget, it would go back to the general fund and it wouldn't be able to be purposed for that. So those are monies that if there was money to be saved, we could repurpose, like CFO Casino.
So for instance, they anticipated out-of-district placements at a total cost, an additional total cost of $560,000. If for whatever reason, if that liability is substantially less, it gives them the ability then to take the difference. Say the out-of-district actual cost were $360,000, they would be able to take $200,000 and put it into the stabilization account and keep that in there for a rainy day or for any future unforeseen special ed costs.
And one last follow-up. So we, as the town, would not be able to take that 200,000 the way we're set up now. Is that correct?
The 2%, you mean?
They're allowed to do it. It doesn't. It's not a requirement. I think that would have to be supported by school administration and the school committee in order to put it into that account.
It's also an account that can grow too, in the sense of not grow beyond the 2%, but if you were to put like a minute amount of money in it right now, next year, if you were to have if the town had some extra funds or whatever that they wanted to put in place there to put aside, that could happen. It doesn't have to be all at once, but it just says the maximum amount is 2%, so we can't exceed that. But I mean, it doesn't matter, like if we used some of the money that it was approved by yourselves to use that money for a specific placement for a student or their transportation to the placement, then we would also be able to add to replenish in the next year if there were monies left in our budget, or if the town was to give us the money. The thing with the article, the 100,000, is once we use that, the article goes away. So it's kind of almost replacing the article. So the article's not going to be there anymore. It's to replace the article, and that's, I believe, how you did it at that point, because it was an article, because it wasn't allowed to be, the monies weren't allowed to be kept once the budget closed for the year.
In terms of, I'll be honest with you, we have had zero discussions about method of funding this reserve account.
Right.
I think they're just looking for the establishment of this account with future discussions to take place on how to fund it, at what level to fund it, whether it's done through the operating budget, whether it's done through an outside article, though all those discussions haven't taken place yet.
So if I could just finish up through the chair. So we had an article for $100,000. We're going to utilize that $100,000. If we vote to approve this fund, then from there on, the monies, whatever is set aside or collected, is going to go to the fund, and it can get managed through the fund. If it doesn't go, if we don't approve this, then in order to replenish the 100,000, we'll say, we would have to vote another article. Is that, am I? Because I'm trying to get you. There's a lot of numbers getting thrown around, but my question hasn't been answered yet.
Okay. So there is the possibility, and it is a possibility, that a portion of that 100,000 may not even be expended if the costs come in less than what was currently anticipated. There is no intent to replenish that 100,000. That was a mechanism that we felt was the best approach to dealing with some spiraling costs at the time. There is a different mechanism now to allow for setting money aside in a reserve account that, quite honestly, is statutorily approved. I think that's the method we would address it and not the outside article route.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Brotherton?
Yes, thank you for coming, Cecilia.
Thank you.
How many do we have, if you can answer this, how many do we have right now of special needs children that we have to transport out of Auburn for education?
Out of district, there's probably I believe 16 roughly out of district, yes. And we have, yes. And then we also have students within the district, but those we accommodate within our budget.
Okay.
But
Thank you very much.
no problem.
Mrs. Goodrich?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here. So, I just have two quick questions. Have you had discussions with Dr. Brunel? Has there been discussions with the school committee or any type of vote that there will be some type of financial policy adopted or commitment that any earmark savings would be dedicated to this and not go elsewhere, and then you would not then turn to the town and look for savings? If you have, the simple question is, if you realize the savings, is the school department, school committee committed to funding this before turning to the town and look forward, if they see those savings?
We haven't had those specific discussions yet. Like I said, it's relatively new, but we've been working very closely with the town, especially during this budgeting season, trying to get, prepare a budget. And, I think we're very open to sitting down and talking about it, and the school committee discussing it. We really just want what's in the best interest of our students, and we, don't want to be coming to the town and that's one of the reasons we're trying to look to insulate ourselves as well as the town in setting up this type of account. But I can't give you a specific with that. I mean, it hasn't really officially been discussed, fully. It's still relatively new. We're looking basically, like CFO Casanova said, was to establish the fund and then to go from there. We weren't looking to actually put any money in it at this point. It's just to get it established, because once it's accepted, it's set up, and then we can work through and work closely together to try to work on how we'll finance that. So.
And
Yes,
just one last question. So, I see in your summary, it states that once the reserve fund is established, funds shall only be distributed after a majority vote of the school committee and a majority vote of the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
So if this fund is established and funded, and in the future you have a need to use this, before you can expend the funds, say for special education transportation, you're required to come before the Board of Selectmen for a
Yes, we are.
majority vote?
Yes.
And I mean, how would that work timeline with the budget, Mr. Kazanovich?
So, I mean, this is kind of a unique situation because every other reserve account requires a vote at town meeting. I think the legislature recognizes these costs do hamper the local district's ability to cover costs when a outside placement is unforeseen. And that's a good question. I think it would require a vote, and then you could spend directly out of that account without the money going back into the operational side of the budget. It'd be a direct expense out of the reserve account.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Mr. Carpenter?
Can I just ask, I actually have a question for Ed, and I'll ask yourself first, but when you're building the special education budget, and I know from sitting through town meetings for 20 plus years, there's always, something that you don't anticipate, and I think that's true of any budget, so it's not. But how do you go about building that or arriving at that number? You have your people that you have.
Right.
Do you have anything built in there to say we might get 2 or 3?
Normally, we just try to project forward what we currently have, looking at what the placements are and if where the assessments are at that point. If we know of people that are moving into the district, we try to take a look at that, or what potentials that could be. If we know that they're coming, because a lot of times you might know ahead of time where they've moved into the district, so aware of it. If the placement's already been set up, those type of things. But we usually try to just budget pretty much for who we're going to have in districts. So,
Yeah, okay.
And I believe there's a notification deadline by date.
they have to by April 1st.
I think by April 1. Unfortunately, April 1 is a little late in the process because our budgets are well on their way of being reviewed by Finance Committee. I mean, that's really the latter part of our process is April 1. So from a timing perspective, that does create a problem. Unfortunately, we have no say in that. That's a statutory deadline. So it's normally something we have to deal with post-annual town meeting. I think in this case for FY18, the school department became aware of some of these outside placements between the time they voted their budget and the time it was going to Finance Committee. So we did some scrambling at the 11th hour to try to make that accommodation because it was significant. I mean, it's something we didn't want to deal with in the fall. So we try to address it as early as we can because there are needs throughout the town, and it does create a problem when we're trying to balance the budget.
Yes, no, so that was something, if maybe we could build something into that, almost like a retained retainage like we would on a construction project, 10% or whatever, just to kind of give you a little cushion in case you have an unanticipated need. I don't know if that works better, worse, I don't know, but I'm just trying to make sure that we do have, where it is late in the year, to try and make sure that we're not scrambling and that we're trying to say, okay, well, we look at 5 years or 3 years. Every year we've had at least 2 outside placements. Maybe we should think of putting that in there, or at least 1, but anyways. And so to Ed, question, how have we funded reserve accounts generally? So on the town side, has that come from free cash? Has it come from the operating budget side? Have we done outside articles to kind of kickstart them? I'm just trying to see, in fairness to, what the process has been historically.
So in terms of, we have a reserve account for extraordinary and unforeseen expenses built into the operating side of the budget. So we deal with situations such as snow and ice and other liabilities, whether it be litigation or other things that are unforeseen. We have someplace we can turn in the operational side of the budget. So you raise a good point as to whether or not there could be a contingency special ed account within the operational side of the budget. We haven't had that discussion. I think this reserve account serves as that release or mechanism. But our other reserve accounts, we appropriate at an annual town meeting or a fall town meeting based upon availability of revenue. And we recognize that there's a benefit to those reserve accounts for all. It's not for one, but it's for all. So we relied on that reserve account to fund a land acquisition for the middle school. We relied on that for a upfront cost to purchase a ladder truck. We'll rely on that for an upfront cost for the replacement turf at the Auburn High School athletic field. With the support that we would continue to feed that reserve account, knowing that there's a reliance to draw on that for future need. So we look at potentially one-time revenue recognition to feed that. We don't have a reliance on that annually as an ongoing appropriation, only at times when we know that it's available and it's a one-time appropriation to that account.
I just asked for clarification. So is that from free cash, or is that money that was closed out at the end? It's sitting in the general fund. What's the source of those revenues, I guess, is my point.
It's general fund revenue. We have not appropriated from free cash to feed our stabilization account, although that is part of a recommendation on our amended financial policies that we have the flexibility to do that in future years.
Okay.
Only because our free cash position is very favorable and we have the ability to do that.
Thank you.
Mr. Berthew.
So let's say, for instance, with the 100,000, we utilize 80 this year. Would it then be the recommendation, and does the recommendation come back to the board to take the 20? Let's say that we do set up this reserve account. It would be the recommendation back to the board, or is this something that the town manager can just appropriate the other 20 into that? And does everything else going forward, any money's going into that reserve, does that have to go through the school committee and the board going in? I know the going out has to. What about the going in?
So I think the going in would be a decision between school administration and the school committee, because they're allowed, if established, to put up to 2% of net school spending into that account every year. So I think that, and I'm sure we will have discussions relative to any movement in doing a deposit into this account. But certainly, my guess is that won't be known until year end, after things have been closed out. So I would have to, from an accounting standpoint, I would have to do an entry from the operational side of the budget into this account, provided that there is a recommendation from school administration with the approval of the school committee. The withdrawal, on the other hand, requires a dual approval. And this was one of the gray areas that we got clarification on, because I didn't know whether it was a joint vote or it was two separate votes. It's clearly two separate votes. School committee would take a position first, it would then come to the board second. So we would need a majority vote in terms of approval on the Board of Selectmen side.
Thank you.
I just have one more for the CFO, if I could. So at the year-end closeout, you close out the town side. Does the school close out the school side? And how is information shared as far as how those accounts, how money is flowed through those accounts? Or do you close out everything?
No, I mean, we have discussions. They have to provide supporting documentation on any carry forward for any recognized liability to support a carryover fund. So, for instance, at the close of FY16, I think there was a carryover of $220,000. It was a liability that was measurable as of June 30th. It truly existed, but there's a delay in payment for whatever reason. That being said, we carry that money over. In terms of this reserve account, if there's anything in beyond that's unobligated, there's no measurable liability for it, and money may exist that would allow them to put it into this account, they could put in up to 2%. All other funds for all of the departments, surplus funds close out to free cash, okay? This would be a separate situation where it doesn't funnel into free cash first, it would go directly into this reserve account.
Okay. So you get notification from school department. You don't close those accounts. You don't have access to how money flows through those accounts.
I have access to all information, but I need supporting documentation to support anything that is reserved and not closing out to free cash.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody got anything else? I guess, Mike, just a quick question. First comment, excellent questions here tonight. Sounds like you've still got some discussions to be making here, and I would caution you that when you go to town meeting, be sure that you have some of those answers for those questions, because I think town meeting members will come up with those questions, as some of them have here tonight, and it sounds like you've got some discussions ongoing, so put as much of that together as possible. My question is, I guess the revolving accounts that we have for the town now are all under one article. Will this be a separate article every year because it is a school department account just for special ed?
This doesn't fit into the category of revolving accounts. It's a one-time vote to establish this reserve account.
Okay, it's a reserve account, not revolving.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Okay, does anybody got anything else? Okay, I guess what we want to do is take a look at it and see if you want to recommend, not recommend, to take no action at this time, or to defer to the petitioner. What's the wish of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make a motion because there's so much information we don't have, and I support this generally because I think it's certainly a good idea. In that this has been in the works since August. I would have liked to have seen some financial policies. I would have liked to seen some thought as to how we're going to fund this, because the budget is very tight, and to ask for money from the operational side is very hard because we have so many needs that have gone unmet for so many years. So my concern is how you're going to fund it, and as Mrs. Goodrich suggested, what kind of financial policies, what kind of thought has gone into how we're going to use this, what the guidelines are, so that's my reasoning. But in general, I think it's a good idea, but I would like to see a little more information before I could say yes. Okay.
Through the chair, could I speak?
Yes.
I just wanted, it's relatively new in the sense of it came out in August as far as being voted in by the governor, and then it became in effect in November. I think the reason why we're coming forward with it now is because of the issue that we just had, where we had the unexpected issues with special education, and we would need to use that $100,000 article. That concerned us tremendously. In prior years, we've known that's been there, and we've kind of been very cautious to just set that aside and leave it be. We haven't had to use it. It's been since May of 2010, and we haven't used it. I think that coming forward now, we're just looking to establish it because of the fact that this has come to light, and I feel like that's why it sounds, I mean, we don't have the policies established, but it's just something that's been put in place by the municipal town to be able to use it as part of the Municipal Modernization Act, where they were trying to change things in the town for different funds to be set up. But I think that's why we don't have the policies in place right now, but we are planning on looking at that and working forward with that. So,
Mr. Chairman, that's my motion, that we take no action at this time.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion been made and seconded not to take any action at this time. Is there any further discussion? Mrs. Goodrich?
If we're not taking action at this time, is there an expectation that we'll take action prior to town meeting, or will it be, or are we really deferring it?
I would take it as a deference.
Okay, because that would be a different
Yep.
motion.
Let me withdraw my motion. Thank you for that suggestion, and I'll make a motion that we defer to the petitioner.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Mr. Berthium?
If we meet again before town meeting and we can get more information, I think I'm happy to hear that more information. But if we're not really provided with anything more, then I'll go ahead and vote with the deference.
It's going to be going to the town meeting anyway, and I'm sure the questions will come up. There'll be a lot of information passed on it that night. But if we defer, then it allows that to go forward, and we can still receive any information there is forward. We just won't have a recommendation because we're still going to be learning on this ourselves. So the motion been made and seconded to defer.
Mr. Chairman,
I'm sorry.
in the audience.
Mr. Page, from the school committee?
Vice Chairman of the School Committee, residents of 90 Oak Common Road in Auburn. I would just like to say I understand what Dan is trying to say and Mr. Berthium, but the thing is, we're not looking at policies or money at this point in time. What we're looking for is to be able to establish a thing so we can look at it further. We can't make policies if we don't have something to make a policy about or for. There's no money being put in by the school committee at this time. It has to be voted by the school committee and addressed with the administration. So to say you don't have enough information, I don't agree with you because there's not really a policy there at this point. The point is only to get the fund open and move forward with making policies and working with the town as a board of selectmen have the right to do to discuss these issues. That's fine, but the time is now and it's needed. Special ed is the hardest thing at a school department to deal with, in my opinion, as a school committee member. It's underfunded by the state, and we don't have the money in our budget all the time. And yes, you can say you can go through the town budget, but to sit here, Mr. Carpenter, and say that you may get 1 or 2 a year is wrong. You could get 5 a year. You could get 10 a year. You could get 1 a year. There is no establishment how many kids are going to need special ed. And I hope I never hear you say that again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Page.
And I could just, Mr. Chairman, my point, Wayne, was looking at the historical data. I'm not saying that you're only going to get 2. I never said that. I said if we can look at the historical data and get some sort of figure so that we can put something in there, then that's at least a cushion. As for if historically we've created these accounts and we've had policies and we've had funding mechanisms, that's what I'm saying. I'm going to treat it the same. I'm not going to treat it differently. I'm not saying there's not a need, and by deferring to the petitioner, I'm not saying in general I'm in favor of it, but I need more information. and I don't have that information, and in a week's time, we're not going to have that information. But that's not going to prevent town meeting from saying yes.
Okay.
And if I'm asked, I will say the same thing on town meeting floor. You know, in general, I support the concept, but I want to know the meat of what we're going to do with this. So I think that's where I'm coming from. If historically this is how we've approached it, then I think we need to do the same here. I'm not denying there's a need. I'm not denying anything. I'm simply saying I don't have enough information to support it. This year we've had a very bad year. Thankfully, we were able to accommodate it. And I would never say no to a budget item for special education. And I don't think town meeting ever has. So I'm not saying no to anybody. I'm simply saying without the information, I can't make a decision to say, yes, establish this account, because I feel I need more information. I need to know how it's going to work, how we're going to fund it, because that's how we've done it historically. So I apologize if that's not the answer that's satisfying or what you want, but you know, I can only make the best judgment at the time with the information I have. So I appreciate all the effort that you've gone through, but you know, I think deferring to the petitioner because we have incomplete information is a safe bet.
Mr. Berthium.
I just want to add that, you know, this doesn't have to be opened up to have a proposed, you know, project or policy or anything like that. You're more than welcome to come up with a proposed policy if that's what we're looking for. Again, not that we need to backtrack and defend ourselves for what we are saying we don't have enough information. We don't. But you know, you could come up with a policy. You could have come with a proposed policy. So, you know, please don't attack us, you know, like we're against special education or something like that. That's not fair. So I'm asking you, don't do that again.
Well, I'm
So there's, we have a motion on the floor.
sorry, I have to disagree with you.
Excuse me, you're not been recognized,
finish,
Mr. Page. You have not been recognized, Mr. Page.
Okay.
There's a motion here on the floor to...
Yeah,
Oh,
Mr.
sorry.
Chairman, before you take the vote, may I offer this? I think because there's a lot of ambiguity, there are a lot of unanswered questions, there are policies maybe to be considered, and I had this discussion briefly with Cecilia a few minutes ago, that they would support withdrawal of this article or postpone indefinitely, and we can bring it back in at a fall town meeting when we have more information, and it would give the school administration and it would give the school committee an opportunity to set guidelines and policies relative to the use and restrictions of these funds. There is no urgency to get this done at the annual town meeting. We have another swing at this at the fall town meeting. My only concern, and Cecilia has verified this, that it can be done at a town meeting other than the annual town meeting. So I think that's an option. I think that would be a good option. It would buy us some more time, and we can come back with some answers to some of the questions that you presented tonight.
With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll happily withdraw my motion and not make a recommendation at this time.
So I think, if I may, I think the motion would fit to defer to the petitioner because the petitioner would withdraw. But I think it's important, whatever outcome becomes of this reserve account, that there's a unified approach that goes to the town meeting floor and it's not divided. I think that's an important message to send to the town meeting members.
Okay, well then I'll reinstate my motion with the understanding that the school department is going to seek to withdraw this motion and come back with further information come the fall. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
So the motion been made to defer to the petitioner on this one. This is both for Articles 15 and 18. Are they...
Just
This
15.
would be strictly for the reserve account.
Reserve account. Okay. Mrs. Goodrich.
Thank you. Just under discussion on this this motion, you know, I want to state I'm in support of of this article. I just would like to, and I think maybe town meeting members would like to see something in place where there's a commitment for certain funds that if they become available, they go into this, so that those funds aren't used, and then we're looking at the, municipal side to look for funds for this article. That's all, just a simple, as a tri-board, we've adopted financial policies to move forward in a unified manner, and I just think that would go a long way in having some type of commitment or financial policy, vote of the board, whatever works on the school side to show a commitment to that and the purpose of this article. But I fully support forming the fund. It's just, I think, the funding source and more so a commitment from unused monies to go into that fund.
Okay.
But I'll support the deferment only so that you can continue your discussions, because we still have until Tuesday to, because the Board of Selectmen deferred to the petitioner, that we didn't take a position of opposing it, so.
So the motion's been made to defer. Is there a second?
No, I made the second.
Okay, so the motion been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Anything from Cecilia? Eddie? Okay. Being none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I had my hand up to speak. You looked right at me and you ignored me and turned your head the other way.
I believe you've made your point, Mr. Page.
Oh, I didn't make my point, sir. You looked right at me with my hand up and then you just turned your head the other way.
And I did not recognize you at the point.
Obviously you didn't.
Talking to the board. I believe you would discuss what you had to.
If I didn't, I wouldn't have my hand up and have you looking directly at me then turning your head away and ignoring me.
Okay, I didn't want to go back and forth, Mr. Page. If you're going to have a back and forth with any members, then I'll quiet you down, but otherwise, go ahead.
I'd just like to thank you for actually deferring this instead of just done outright getting rid of it. But Mr. Berthium and Mr. Carpenter, I totally disagree with your position on how you handled this. Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Just if we want to thank. Do we have the Article 18?
We have
right?
Article 18 also to discuss.
And I also had given in the article, we'd given Joseph Fahey, and I had written up a memo explaining that further, so.
Okay. And so the article to repurpose CIP funds to support the replacement of the burner at the Auburn High School. Okay. And that's to amend the Article 4 on the May 2016 town meeting. What is the plans of the school department to do that on Article 18? What are you going to be doing on that?
Okay, what we're looking to do is to take, we've had discussions with Town Manager Jacobson and CFO Kasanovitz regarding the food service department and their revolving account, starting to pay a little bit more for some of the expenses in the kitchen equipment. So we were looking to repurpose. There was $20,000 that had been allocated for fiscal year 17 to be used for equipment replacement in the kitchens of the schools, and we were looking to have that repurposed to be used for the burner to be replaced at the high school.
Okay.
And what had happened, just quickly, we had replaced the previous 2 burners. There were 3 burners. 2 of them have been replaced through the Green Energy Initiative grant. The 3rd was not able to be taken care of with that, so we were looking to try to use those funds to repurpose that.
Okay. I guess just for clarification, what is the burner at Auburn High School?
Well,
Is it?
it's in the, it talks about in the...
The kitchen equipment are repurposed at $20,000 to be used for replacing the burner at Auburn High School. Yeah, just so that we have clarification on it.
The original Gordon pilot burner at Auburn High School, which is no longer manufactured, will be replaced with an energy efficient one similar to the other 2 that were installed through the Green Community Grant Program. that's basically what we're looking to do.
Okay, so the burner is in the kitchen, Mike? 'Cause-
No, it's not in the it's for the high school itself. There's 3 burners. It's, what we're trying to do is take the money from the food service department, where we have funds in the revolving account to try to support the food service program moving forward. We're trying to utilize those funds.
Yes.
So as not to have to use CIP funding. So what we're trying to do is take that CIP fund and utilize that towards the replacement of the burner for the actual high school in general. It's not
The
just...
burner for the heating system.
Yes, I
Thank
apologize.
you.
Okay.
Because when I was getting a little confused. I said, we have a burner in the kitchen. I said, I wasn't quite sure what we were doing. This is a burner for the boiler, for the heating system of the school.
That's why I had Mr. Fahey help me, because that's his area of expertise.
Hey, thank you. Well, that's what I just wanted to clarify, because we were talking about kitchen equipment, and then we were going to replace a burner, and it didn't,
No, we were...
you didn't clarify exactly what the burner was, but
We
thank
just
you
felt
very
it would
much.
be a better use of that $20,000. So.
Is anybody else got any other questions? Mrs. Brotherman?
I don't have a question, Mr. Chair.
No, I was just going to make a motion
I
for
was too.
approval, but if
Okay.
you want to do it, I'll second whatever motion you make.
I'd like to make a recommendation that we accept this and approve the article.
Okay,
Second.
all right. Mr. Berthew?
Just a quick question. It said that evidently the company that originally installed these 3 boilers 11 years ago has gone out of business.
Burners, yes.
Were there any lawsuits or anything? Because obviously a burner should last longer than 11 years. And so now we're talking about that we're looking to use this to replace the burner as opposed to repair the old one, which the manufacturer doesn't manufacture anymore. But it almost sounds like somewhere along the line the ball was dropped. Is there any more information as to that?
I think the thing is the school's getting older. We've replaced the 2 burners. Constant changes in technology. Everything's more energy efficient. We're concerned about the fact that if we don't replace it with a different type of burner, that we won't be able to get the parts to fix if it breaks down. And we're hoping to see, we feel like we've seen a little bit more savings in our natural gas, and we're hoping with this other 3rd burner added that we'll see even more greater savings. But we're just concerned with the fact that if it does break down, we won't be able to repair it because the company's no longer in existence. So.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right, so the motion made and seconded to approve this Article 18. Is there any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much, Cecilia, for coming in tonight.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Okay.
Okay. Our first item here is the presentation of the wine and malt package store license application for Charlotte Reach at 860 Southbridge Street. Is there anybody here? Yes. Yeah. Would you kindly come up here and sit with us, please? Yeah. Can you open the hearing, please?
I make a motion to open the hearing.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to open the hearing. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Would you introduce yourselves?
Hi, my name is George Strish, and this is my wife, Charlotte Strish.
Okay. We have application here for the wine and malt package store license at 860. That's, bless you. That's, your plans are, is your gas station open now?
It was open. I just took it over.
Okay.
I believe they had approval of the board on that location for beer and wine, and then they had issues and they couldn't go through with it, and then they left the site.
Okay.
So I was approached, I took the site over, and now I'm going for it.
Okay. We've also received a letter, a notification that you've already approached the fire department about your pumping of gas.
Yes, sir.
And have you received that as yet?
Yes, it was inspected by Weights and Measures. Everything's all set.
Okay, thank you. Have you any questions? Mrs. Goodrich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, so I have a lot of questions, and I'll just go on record as saying I fully support the application for the beer and wine license,
Thank
but
you.
I do have a few issues.
Sure.
So I'll first address those. And so the board knows, I had, and I apologize, he couldn't be here tonight, he's out. I had a conversation with Mr. Coyle over some of my concerns, and he has in turn had conversations with Mass DOT that he relayed back to me. Now, I don't expect my board to just say, oh, you know, she got this information, let's support her, but I'm going to share with you at this time my concerns and my conversations with Mass DOT. So when we first issued the beer and wine license to this location, it was set up different. I'm very familiar with the location. It was set up differently because this was before the completion of the Highway 20 project. So what has happened to that location, I want to talk to everyone, for this Highway 20 project is, what they've done is they've put a pedestrian sign and a handicap ramp in the entrance.
Correct.
So there's no entrance. No, I'm going to finish. I'm very familiar with it. So there's no entrance off of Route 20. So what has happened, and I live right there, so I see all the time when I'm waiting at the traffic light, people go by the entrance and are now trying to make that sharp right into the exit, which I'm
Correct.
sure you agree with, and you've seen it. And
I've seen it happen a couple of times since yes.
and a dangerous situation because you have cars coming down Route 20.
Correct.
Now, I fully first acknowledge that our role here is for the beer and wine license, but we also put conditions to say that, to be sure they're in compliance with all the other boards and commissions. So I also spoke with Mrs. Coyle, who's the department head for the Department of Inspectional Services. She said this is actually, could be considered a significant change in the plan because they no longer have the driveway. So Bill Coyle, even on a sick day, did call Mass DOT because so are you familiar, everyone familiar with the property? It's at the corner of 20 and Albert Street. There is an entrance on Albert Street.
Correct.
But being on Highway 20, people aren't familiar with our local roads, so no one's going down there to enter the gas station. So what Mr. Coyle has offered, and if people want, and I'm hoping that people will support this conditionally, is he's contacted Mass Highway, and I believe this will help your business too, to put a sign right prior, Mass Highway has agreed to this, to say gas station entrance with an arrow that way. That way people will know to go down there, because it's my belief that nothing has succeeded there because they have closed off.
I agree with you 100%.
You know, so I think, although it's an additional condition for you, I truly believe that this will help your business. So Mr. Coyle, to my board members, has contacted Mass DOT. They've verbally approved the sign and authorized the town to make the sign and erect the sign. And I don't have this information, Mr. Coyle couldn't be here. I don't know if that sign will be at your expense or at the town's expense, but it's a sign. But it will help direct the traffic to your what is now known as the only entrance because you've got an exit.
Yes, when they put, again, like you said, when they put that, it was a crosswalk sign. And I was just talking to Arlene from Board of Health. She was at my site today, and I said, only if they moved that sign, the crosswalk sign, 3 feet, we would have had an entrance on that. And it wouldn't have bothered anything because it would have been right there.
But also that raised thing is the wheelchair.
Correct,
access.
but that would have been
Yeah.
flat with the street anyway, so we wouldn't need any, the wheelchair would have been perfect, but they didn't. I was on my own when I opened the site. I was going to put a sign that says entrance, just because I've seen a couple of cars, they try to go in, they see that there's no way to go in. They go a little further up, cars behind them going down. But that's going to happen with gas, that's going to happen with this. Anybody that's trying to kind of come into that site is going to have an issue. Now, either we leave that site closed or we do something about it. And I was gonna put a sign up that says entrance this way. And like you said, just to support my business, that's all, try to make it.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, and that was my purpose of this call to Mr. Coyle and to follow up with this, because I do want to see that, we don't want to see a vacant lot at the end. We've got a vacant lot on the corner that just
Correct.
collects trash, doing businesses, it's a good stretch of road there. I was sincerely concerned for public safety because I've seen some near accidents, and like I said, if you're not a local, you don't know that there's access. So I think having a sign done by the DPW in a professional manner where it's, not that you wouldn't have it made in a professional manner, but more of a legal sign or whatever you want to call it, it would draw the traffic that way, and I think it would also help.
Would somebody be in touch with me? Would somebody be? I don't know how this is gonna go about with that sign.
So my discussions with Mr. Coyle was that he couldn't be here tonight, so there were two recommendations that we either continue it or vote it conditionally, but I know that this has to still go before ABCC.
Correct.
And we don't want to delay you. I don't want to delay you any further, so I would respectfully ask when the time comes to make a motion that, we'd be allowed to put this condition that he work with Mr. Coyle to have the town install signage for safe access to the property. So, and then I have my basic standard questions for beer and wine license. Tip certified.
Correct.
You understand that all of your employees
Have to be tip certified.
and understand the policy. The Auburn Police operates stings once or twice a year. You would come before this board if there was a violation. We look harshly at serving to minors.
Hopefully we'll never have violations.
Yeah, hopefully, but I do. I wish you luck. I hope the
Thank you
board
very much.
supports it, and I think with this condition that I'm proposing to put, it will actually help your business.
Thank you. My only thing is, now, the site is going to be open for cigarettes store until ABCC approves the beer and wine. So we're going to have the same issue for people coming in to get gas, to get cigarettes, to get lottery, to get a candy bar or a piece of gum. So it's not just for beer and wine.
And I understand.
So that's why I would ask you to pass it. I'm gonna go through with the sign just to support my business. I'm gonna, because I have to. I mean, by being there, it's gonna make it hard for people to come in. It's easy for them to get out, but it's gonna be hard for them to come in unless I put a sign saying, take a right and come into the site. So it's gonna be done, regardless whether it was proposed or not. I was gonna do it, and I spoke to the health department today actually about it. With that town of help from the town, it's awesome. Definitely, I would. It'll definitely help the business, and we don't want more businesses closed in town. I mean, I have a lot of properties in the town of Auburn, and I walk around and I'm like, you know what, we got to do something about these businesses.
And so if I may, Mr. Chairman, so after several discussions, when I came into this meeting tonight, that was going to be the proposal that we approve it, the beer and wine conditionally with this sign, and then hopefully you can get together long before this happens with Mr. Coyle and get this sign, produced now for the safety of anyone trying to, because you're still selling, like you said, still selling gasoline, and it is a safety issue.
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Carpenter?
So I just have one question. So we're approving this, through the chair to Mrs. Goodrich, we're approving this conditionally, so if he can't get the sign up, or DOT can't get the sign up, he can't sell beer and wine? Is that the thrust of your proposal?
So verbally, Mass DOT has already told our DPW director that they give him verbal permission to erect a sign. So, and we do the signs in-house. So it's not a concern of waiting for Mass DOT, which could be a concern, but it would just be waiting for the town, and the town wants to get this sign up as soon as possible because they recognize this safety issue as well. And I would assume that it's going to be long before this even goes through the ABCC process, that this sign, I expect, will be erected soon, correct?
Yeah, I mean, if we were to erect the sign in accordance with Mass DOT, I wouldn't expect any problems or any delays or any problem relative to the approval of the license from the ABCC. So, I'm sure we can do that on short order.
Yeah, if I can, Mr. Chairman, just because he's selling everything else, so I don't want it that we're waiting and holding up his license because he already has a license to sell 50 other things. So I have no problem putting it on as a condition that a sign be erected, but I don't want in any way this to be, if the sign isn't there, suddenly you can't sell liquor, but you can sell everything else, which is still keeping the hazard in place, I guess is my concern.
Well, go ahead, Mr. Goodrich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I guess, I looked at it as us being the licensing authority, this now coming to the attention of others, and where we are the licensing authority, it gave us the opportunity to correct a safety issue that is currently there, that this is a way to correct it. I mean, the applicant has said he's willing to put a sign up, but I believe that also has to go through the building department to get approval for that sign, and Mr. Coyle has said that he's willing to do this sign, as soon as possible.
Correct.
So I don't believe that there would be any delay on his application for beer and wine, and now that it's been brought to the attention of the town that it is a safety issue, and several have driven down there and looked at it, I think that they'll make it a priority.
I'm not concerned, I'm not saying that it's not a safety issue. What I'm saying is he's selling 50 items. I don't want to conditionally approve it. I'll approve it subject to a sign being placed. But again, the safety problem exists no matter what he sells. So even if he didn't have a store, he'd be selling gas today. That same unsafe condition would exist, but he has a license. So why wouldn't we disapprove it and add a condition saying that he's going to work with Mr. Coyle? That's the conditional part of it.
That's what I'm saying, add a condition.
But you were saying a conditional approval, so that's where I'm misunderstanding.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay, just so it's coming through the chair.
Through the chairman.
Thank you.
So it would be approval with a condition added to it.
Okay, that's where I was misunderstanding, so thank you.
Thank you. Okay, does anybody else, anything else? Have you got anything else to add?
No, so yes, actually, one quick thing. So now with the sign, I'm going to wait till I get contacted with DPW.
Sharon can give you the contact information to call him tomorrow.
Okay. Sounds good.
Does anybody got anything else? Motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, what is the wish of the board? Mrs. Goodrich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll make a motion that we approve the license provided that all applicable requirements of the state and town and any of its departments, boards, and commissions have been fulfilled. Said license is subject to all the conditions stated upon it. Failure to comply with any and all the conditions shall invalidate the license and render it null and void, with a condition that the applicant contact Mr. Coyle to install the sign as discussed.
Second.
Sharon, have you got that? Okay. Is there any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
I think the next one is our
We have no communications. Now we have the AMF Auburn Lanes. We have a couple of those in front of us tonight. And is there a representative? Please, come up and join us. Okay, we've got two applications here tonight. First, the indoor entertainment license at 101 Southbridge Street. And I guess we'll ask you to identify yourself, introduce yourself, and just tell us a little bit about what you plan to do with the entertainment license.
My name is Eric Mahoney. I am general manager of AMF Auburn Lanes on Southbridge Street. With the entertainment license is for the arcade that we currently have. We took it over from a third-party vendor and went out and bought our own stuff and bring it in-house for ownership of the company with the arcade.
Okay, and it's all going to be just a coin-operated arcade?
It's an intercard system where you go in, you can pay with, you can load a card with credits, either cash or with a credit card. So it would basically coin operated.
Okay. Is there any questions? Anybody got anything? Okay. What's the wish of the board?
Just want to make sure there's no conditions.
Games are family friendly, so we don't have any shooting games in there. It's 2-minute football drill game, 4 basketballs, an air hockey game, merchandisers, the giant crane, the cranes, Pac-Man we have a couple of motorbike racing games, so it's all family friendly games.
And we see that you've met with the DCG, and let's see, the DCG informed the applicant that there were no specific concerns about the granting of the licenses, and the group defers to the Board of Selectmen for the decision on the current application. So it's here, and so if there's any questions, I'll entertain a motion. Mrs. Goodrich.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the license for the indoor entertainment license as presented in our packet.
Second.
Okay, and that'll also, we need to provide all the applicable requirements. We have to add that in there, please.
Said license is subject to all the conditions stated upon it. Provided that all applicable requirements of the state and town and any of its departments, boards, and commissions have been fulfilled, said license is subject to all the conditions stated upon it. Failure to comply with any and all of the conditions shall invalidate the license and render it null and void. And I don't believe there are any conditions from the DCG.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. And so now back to AMF again. We have a Auburn Lanes coin-operated amusement machine license at 101 Southbridge Street.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Motion to approve the license, provided that all applicable requirements of the state and town and any of its boards, departments, and commissions have been fulfilled. Said license is subject to all conditions stated upon it. Failure to comply with any and all the conditions shall invalidate the license and render it null and void. And I don't believe there are any conditions on this one
No,
as
there
well.
aren't. That's also referred to the board.
And that would be approval as presented.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, motion been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Good luck.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for coming in.
Mr. Chairman, I think we have someone here, maybe for Rockdale.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we'd like to move that up if we can. Is there anybody here from...
We're just setting the hearing.
Okay. All right. Well, then let's do that right now then.
Okay.
Can we move up
Motion to
item
move up
5H?
5H.
Second.
Letter from the building commissioner on Rockdale Auto, 518 Washington Street, request to set a hearing on the license violations.
Just remember, it's hearing, set a hearing.
Thank you. Okay. In our package tonight, we've received a letter from Caleb Moody from the building commissioner, and they've had several issues with the property regarding the storage of vehicles in excess of the number allowed by license, and illegal parking, no striping marking out of the parking areas, and as shown on the approved plan, and illegal filling of rear and side yard of the property. I guess there's been no correction to any of these, so he's brought it to the board so that we can have a hearing, schedule a hearing. What is the wish of Mrs. Goodrich?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to schedule a hearing at our next meeting. I don't have a calendar in front of me.
That's
May 8th at 7:10, unless we have something else scheduled.
I don't know, have we got enough time to do that and do the advertising for the hearing?
All we need to do is notify the property owner.
All we have to do, so we don't have to advertise and we don't, okay.
It doesn't get advertised.
Okay, so May 8th, is there anything, do you know if we've got anything else pending that's...
We have 2 presentations that night, the audit.
And the economic development, okay. Let's see, will we have enough time to handle that on May 8th? I think we should be able to without too much problem. We have 2 presentations that night, but I think those won't be very long.
So I'll change the time of the motion, make a motion to schedule it on May 8th to 7:30.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, so motion been made and second to schedule a hearing for May 8th at 7:30 on Rockdale Auto at 518 Washington Street. Is there any discussion? Mr. Carpenter?
Chairman, I just note that the owner is here. I don't know if it's appropriate for him to speak, but I'd hate to see him be here and not. If it's inappropriate, then we can let him know, but...
All we're here to do tonight is we're not to discuss any of the issues tonight. We're here to determine if we need a hearing.
I understand, but the gentleman is here, and
Yeah.
perhaps he has a question or something, and maybe we could allow him to at least ask a question.
Again, we are only here to schedule a hearing. Any discussion? Excuse me.
My only concern is about the date.
Would you please come up then and introduce yourself?
My name is Ronald LaRusso. I'm the owner of the property
Okay.
and presently in progress of an eviction. And I actually go back to court May 11th. So I was wondering if we could bypass this date till after the 11th of May.
So May 8th, so it will not be till May 22nd.
That would be probably better, because the problem might be alleviated.
Okay. If we can do that, if we do that to May 22nd, this is good, Richard?
Mr. Chairman, just under my motion that when we handled this the last time, it was that they were withdrawing the application for transfer of the license and that the property owner was taking over the management of this property, and we continue to have issues.
Right. So I think what it is here now is, excuse me. I think what you have here is, thank you.
Might need something.
Yes, and you are right, Mrs. Goodrich, that, thank you, that issue was with the owner of the property, and I think what we should do is probably still schedule this hearing and talk about the issues here, because regardless of what he's going to court on, this is still within our licensing ability, and I think we should be discussing this and get it done as soon as possible. Oh, excuse me. Thank you.
You're welcome. If I could, Mr. Chairman, in that the business owner is here, and I do understand that there are ongoing issues, but I think if someone asks us for relief, it's 2 weeks. This has been an ongoing problem for many years, according to the building inspector. I think we can give the gentleman 2 weeks to see what's going on. I think we've all seen how disputes between business associates can become untenable. So despite the fact that Mr. LaRusso said what he said, the tenant has rights and is apparently exercising those rights or refusing to leave the building or something, and I'm not asking for information, but I would ask us to move it to the 22nd in fairness to the gentleman, and he's requested it. I think it's only fair that we give him 2 weeks to straighten himself out.
Okay. Is there any further discussion?
I'll withdraw my motion, but I can't support moving it, so I'll withdraw my motion, and Mr. Carpenter can take and make a motion.
All right, then I will make a motion that we schedule a hearing for May 22nd. Sharon, is there a special time, or are we wide open fences?
I'm not sure if there's anything on that night, but
So I will...
May 22nd, that'll be our organizational meeting. That'll be our organizational meeting with new members of the board, possibly.
So it'll be easy. But Mr. Casanova,
If I may,
Yes,
through the chair, I just want the board to know that these letters were sent to the owner. They do come with a daily fine that would continue to accumulate. So that's, I just want you to be aware of that because that's part of the enforcement.
Yes. And that's something you're capable of taking care of? You
Again,
these additional fines?
This is not anything we can discuss. It's,
Well, he's asked for the 22nd, so if he doesn't wish to continue it with the financial hardship, then I would say do it on the 8th, but...
well, I guess that's up to the board what we want to do. If there's a motion, what is the motion?
I'm going to stay with the 22nd unless you object to the 22nd at 7:10.
Okay, motion's been made. Is there a second for the 22nd? Being no second, is there any other motion?
I'll make a motion that we go back to May 8th at 7:30.
Motion made for May 8th at 7:30. Is there any second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Berthium, thank you. Is there any discussion? Yes, Mr. Berthium.
Yeah, I'm assuming that we'll also get another update at that point as to what the condition is. I'm assuming that the owner is having troubles getting the vehicles moved or whatever, but it's like, it could go to court, it could end up going till June. So that's why I think that we need to let the owner know as soon as possible what they're going to continue to be faced with. And that's why my reason for doing it at an earlier date. I don't think we're doing anybody any favors by putting it off based on a court case.
Okay. Is there any way that we can get a detailed information report to the owner and also to us so that we know exactly up to date till May 8th or whenever the...
I can have the building commissioner provide an updated report to the board. If I knew we were going to have this level of discussion this evening, I would have had him present, and he would have been helpful to providing information to you to make a decision tonight. So we, quite honestly, just anticipated a hearing to be scheduled, and that discussion would take place at the hearing. I understand the conflict and dilemma. I respect that, but I just needed to let the board know that the clock is ticking, and these fines and penalties, violations, are accumulating at the expense of the owner. So if there's no opposition to the motion that was before you now, then
So leave it on the 8th.
Okay, well, I think that's what I want to hear now. The motion's been made, and it's been seconded for May 8th at 7:30. Is there any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? May 8th at 7:30. Thank you. Okay. Now we'll go back to vote on the annual license renewals for secondhand junk licenses. And we have, in our packets, we've got 4 of them. Adams Estate at 871 Southbridge Street, and then 3 at the Auburn Mall, Hanush Jewelers, Best Buy Mobile, and GameStop. They have met with the DCG, and there was no specific concerns about the granting of the licenses through 2017, and the DCG refers to the Board of Selectmen for the decision on the current application. What is the wish of the board? Mrs. Goodrich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a question for Mr. Kazanovich, because we did have an issue with one of these recently. Was the police department represented at this DCG hearing, so they've acknowledged there's been no further issues?
Correct.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the license renewals provided that all applicable requirements of the state and town and any of its departments, boards, and commissions have been fulfilled. Said license is subject to all conditions stated upon it. Failure to comply with any and all conditions shall invalidate the license and render it null and void.
Okay, the motion been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion been made and seconded for the annual license renewal, secondhand junk licenses. Any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Okay, we go to gift acceptances. We have none tonight. We have no proclamations in front of us, and we are off to the Board of Selectmen goals and objectives. And I guess I'll leave it open to board members to discussion as to what we want to do about goals for the board this year. Yes, Mrs. Brotherton.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, let me just grab this came up quick. First and foremost, I'd like to thank my peers on the board for allowing me to participate in Mrs. Jacobson's evaluation. It meant a lot to me. So thinking where I am not returning for another term, I said, well, then maybe I don't have to worry about any goals. So I said it's only in fairness that I respond. Mr. Chairman and fellow members, I would love to see for the future, for our board, to educate the residents on the continued needs for members to become part of the board and commissions. If there was some sort of outreach that maybe could be performed to enhance residents to volunteer for services would be one of my goals. Number two, I would recommend that the board seek some way to educate our residents on the town meeting process.
Educate the residents
Our residents on the town meeting process.
on the town meeting process.
And thirdly, I would like a code. I know we had brought up the chance of a code of conduct previously, and I think that we need one for those attending meetings and those that participate in meetings.
Okay. Okay. Is there any discussion on any of those? Mr. Carpenter?
I'll agree with everyone but the last, because I don't agree with a code of conduct. I don't think we have enough discussion at the board level, and it has a chilling factor. We did have problems in the past. When I first got on the board, there were issues. Thankfully, those issues abated, and I think we have a good working relationship, so I don't think we need to have that. So I can't agree to that, and your second item, I really feel we would need to work with the town clerk and the moderator, because I feel that they are the responsible officers of that, so I would not want to presume to preempt them, shall we say. So certainly anything we can do to work with our other elected officials and say, you know, do you have any ideas? I'd be happy if we could modify that a little. And what was your first one? You were educating on the needs for board and commission needs. I'm happy to look at that. I know that's a big issue to try and attract people. So thank you for all of those, actually.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Mr. Berthium?
Oh, is this discussion on?
No, it's whatever, you know what...
I just wanted to go over a couple that I thought about. One is the continuation of commerce in town. I know, you know, we've had a couple of businesses move out. We have some things going on with the Auburn Mall now. You know, and I just think that we need to continue, whether it be with the Chamber of Commerce or what have you, to get all vacant buildings populated and get as much money flowing and as much retail as we can here in town.
I think that may, not to interrupt, but I think probably that would be go hand in hand with one of the goals we have for the town manager with their economic development program, because she is involved in that, and that program is going to be presented to us at our May 22nd meeting or the May 8th meeting? May 8th, I believe. Yeah, May 8th, they're going to bring in an economic development program, explain it to us, give us a presentation on, the steps to it and what to be looking for. So that may be something we want to look into, working hand in hand with the town manager. Go ahead.
And going along kind of with that, we're talking about a Drury Square project, and quite frankly, it's scaring me a little bit that I hope we're not jumping the gun with any funds that might come down, or with the Drury Square project. I'd love to see people walking Drury Square again. I'd love to see us have a downtown Auburn again. But with the current situation, looking at it, I'm not seeing that, we can pour some money into facades and things like that, but I think there needs to be different types of stores and shops and something that's going to draw the people, not just a park or what have you. And along those lines, I think we need to have a long range or short range plan on what we're going to do with a police and fire complex or separate police station, fire station. I think both of these facilities are probably busting at the seams right now. I know there's been talk, around town that, it would be great to have something here or there, but I really think before we spend any money at all, there needs to be a long-range goal of this is where the safety complex is going to be. This is, what the reuse of these buildings are going to be. This is what we're going to do with Drury Square. So I just, as a goal this year, I'd love to see something put in place where we kind of have a plan of what size facilities we need, what kind of land do we need, when are we actually going to outgrow? We already, I believe, have outgrown our facilities. So that's another goal that I would like to see.
Okay. Again, the town manager has been involved with the CMRPC, and that's the regional planning. And there is some grant money, I believe, coming to us to do a study on that. And Eddie, can you give us a little bit more information on that? Have you got anything on that? Or because I know that we have, I have discussed with the town manager. She has a plan, proposed plan for the Drury Square project for that, and it'll be working with businesses. So we're not going to be putting up money to, rebuild buildings or anything. We're going to be working with the business community to help revitalize. And some of your comments with police, fire, that type of thing that the town would actually need, I think that would come into play also. I think that'd be a study.
Yeah, and I think, just to echo what the chairman has said, I think that's currently in the works. I think the potential exists for the money, provided the article passes at the annual town meeting, for the installation of 2 billboards for the Mass Pike corridor behind the Auburn Mall. That would provide an infusion of funds to rehabilitate or to enhance the Drury Square aspect of a project. Certainly that's a start, but like you said, there needs to be a short-term and a long-term plan in addressing that area of town.
My concern, through the chair, my concern is that if we do have that influx of funds through the signs, that we don't just go spend that money on Drury Square without having a long-term plan. I don't want to spend that money only to 5 years from now say, okay, now we're going to do this with a new safety facility, or we have a better idea. I'd like to have everything in place before we start spending that money. And that was kind of, as soon as I heard that we're gonna have some money coming to us, my first thought was, oh great, we got things coming in and let's just get to it. But I don't think that's fiscally responsible to just throw it at Drury Square because the idea is that we want to build up Drury Square. I think we need to have a full plan of what we're going to do with Drury Square and our safety facilities and that type of thing before spending that money.
And I couldn't agree more. I think there needs to be a vision, there needs to be a plan, and it's not automatic that this billboard money would automatically go there. It has been suggested as part of an overhaul comprehensive plan. So, I couldn't agree with you more.
Okay, thank you.
There has been a lot in the works. As a matter of fact, I went to one of the meetings that was open to the residents at the high school to discuss what people would like to see at Drury Square, and there were things that people wanted to see. They wanted to be out walking on the sidewalks. They wanted to, next to the firehouse, they wanted to clear out the area and there so that to open it up, and they were even talking about swan boats and the pond. So there's some areas down there that they do want to clean up, and it's not something you're going to get done in a 5-year period. I think you're talking a 10 or a 12-year plan anyway, and I don't think it's going to be something we'll just jump into. And I think the town manager, she not being here tonight, would be able to, give us a little bit more insight as to what's going on with that project.
Okay. And my last item was that we need to focus somewhat on the safety of town. It just seems like our town is more and more susceptible to crime at the mall and to, transporting, I won't say specifically drugs, but things are coming into our town that, and I know they've been here before, but I would really like to have a goal to see if we can help police and fire, see if there's anything more we can do prevention-wise, in working with the mall. The mall is a very important part of our tax base, and it just seems like things are getting a little out of hand there, and I'd like to make it a goal to see what we can do to help police, fire, the property owners, to see if we can get our town a little bit more safe.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody got any comments or questions? Mrs. Goodrich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I'll make my comments on the other goals, and I think they're all excellent goals. My only concern, first of all, we'll have to, once we all provide our goals, decide maybe one per member or whatever we want to do. But a comment regarding Mr. Berthium's last goal, which will fall into some other comments I'll make, is so that we can have a specific goal. Goals need to be attainable. Maybe, and I'm going to be more specific about forming subcommittees of the Board of Selectmen. So maybe we could form a subcommittee to work with our public safety officials to hear and address concerns that they have, then bring them back to the Board of Selectmen to see what we can do to address those concerns, to see if we have any teeth, whether it's through licensing or penalties or whatever, to assist or working with them all, whatever it may be. But for something like that, your comment was focus on the safety of our town. To make it a more specific goal, maybe say form a subcommittee of the Board of Selectmen to work with our public safety officials to address the safety concerns, bring them back to the board so we can in turn address them. That would just be the recommendation, to have it so that it's attainable and that it's something we can do. But I think they're all excellent goals. So I did come forward with two myself tonight, and they follow up on some comments and concerns I've had over the last couple of meetings. One of them being our Class 1 and our Class 2 licenses. One of our few responsibilities is the licensing authority. And what I've seen seen and heard over the last several meetings, because I've had several conversations, because there's been so many issues, are we seem to have a lot of concerns. In speaking to the building commissioner, although we say on our license, provided that all, they're in compliance with their license, they're not. And what's happening is there's a $25 a day fine, and I'm not being specific to this gentleman, it's about other violations as well. There's no teeth to it because they want to pay the $25. So my proposal is to have the Board of Selectmen develop a policy regarding Class 1 and Class 2 license holders and the compliance of those licenses, and that would be the goal. And then my suggestion that we would look at, under that item is, okay, so we don't hear from the building inspector until it's severe. Like, how many infractions can you have before this board should be notified? At what point, and this would be part of developing a policy, at what point do we send the license holder a letter saying, we're aware that you're in violation of your license and you're getting a $25 a day fine, or we're aware you've had 6 in the last 6 months. So that's one of the ones I'd like to see us be more proactive, is give the building inspector a little teeth to hold these people accountable. And the second one, and it comes up, it has come up several times in the last several years, are liquor licenses and indoor and outdoor entertainment and outdoor service of liquor. I'd like to, my recommendation for a goal would be that we form a subcommittee to work with town administration to ensure that all of our license holders are in compliance with their licenses, that they're aware of the licenses that they're required to have, because I've always said this, it's not fair to the people who are playing by the rules, the license holders that are playing by the rules, and then we have others who are maybe serving alcohol outdoors that we're not aware of, or having outdoor entertainment that we're not aware of. And I think it's incumbent on us as the licensing authority to ensure that we have all of that information, and I think a subcommittee to focus on so my specific goal would be to form a subcommittee to work with town administration to ensure the compliance of all liquor licenses.
Okay. Anybody, any comments? I would agree with that one 100%, because you do have those people that work hard all the time to comply with their licenses, and other ones with, they might possibly try to slide through the cracks and just get away with what they can if they're not being watched. And I think it's probably a good thing to make sure that everybody's, it's all or nothing. And I think hold everybody to the same standard, I think, is definitely a great idea. Mrs. Goodrich.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, it's the same with the Class 1 and the Class 2 licenses. We have license holders who, who are excellent community members who give back to the community, not that that's a condition of their license, but have played by the rules for years and years and years. And then we have, what I've learned recently are license holders that just, this is an exaggeration, but this was just in discussion, that the building commissioner spends half his hours going after complaints for Class 1 and Class 2 license holders. So I think it's a good goal. I'd ask that the board support both, if not one of these on my end.
Okay. Anybody got anything else? Okay. It's very, very interesting to hear some of these goals tonight, and the town has gone leaps and bounds over some of the other towns in the area and even across the state. Just as a informational type of thing, I went online and looked to see what goals and policies were set by other towns and cities, and some of the ones I saw I think they're about 5 to 10 years behind us. We have gone so far, we've done so well in this town with the proactivity of the administration, with the professionalism of all our departments and the employees. I think we've made great strides in bringing our town forward, and so it was kind of interesting to see what some of the other ones geez, they like to be, I think, in our shoes. But one of the things I would like to take a look at is maybe putting together, and you know, it just, they were talking about with Lionel, we're talking about the pursuing the Drury Square project, you know, policies for just banners, just advertising for that type of a thing down there, because it's not going to be just a zoning bylaw type of a thing. It's going to be bringing our business area up to par with, you know, make it more presentable for the public. And I think we could get some policies together to take a look at what we would do for signage, what we would do for, you know, that type of thing, improvements. And that would go along with, I think, with the plan for, you know, what the Drury Square project would be. Just a thought, but one of the things I'd like to do, and I think it's kind of important, and you can see from what we have here, it's all over the desks here, we have so much paper here. I'd like to see this board take a look into electronic packets for the board members. So maybe we can alleviate some of the paperwork, and you know, it could be presented to us over electronically, and it would be a current and an accurate record for us all the time. I don't know what it would take. It'd be something we'd have to explore, but I think it's something to the cost of paper, the cost of the copier operation. I think electronic packets for the board members, I think, would be definitely a worthwhile venture for us to go forward and have it complete, accurate, and up-to-the-minute information. And the other thing I was thinking about is explore implementation of maybe some possibly of remote participation for residents unable to attend meetings, not for meeting members, but for people that are unable to get out of their homes. They would like to be here, they can't get transportation, it's inclement weather, but we're still here and we're still having a meeting, or just something to look into if we could get something so that, and it would open up doors for people to come and, you know, speak to us and just ask those questions of, you know, if they're not able to be present at our meetings. So there's a couple of things that I was thinking about, and something to kick around. I'll hear from the board, and we've got some goals that we might want to, you know, put together tonight so that we can move forward. I know we are, you know, a good portion of the way through April, and, you know, usually it's by the end of the year or the first of the following year that we're pretty much caught up with that. But these goals could be ongoing and just continue the process, so that, because we have ongoing projects, town manager has ongoing goals that just continue with her work from year to year. So what does the board wish to do? Mrs. Goodrich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to get a sense of how many goals we may be adopting, what the expectation is, and how we'll move forward with attaining these goals. If we adopt 10, you know, are they divided up? I want to have a better understanding of how many goals we're going to adopt, and what the role of the members are for attaining these goals.
Well, I think from what I can see right now, there's a couple here that we're talking about having subcommittees work with town departments or work with the town administration for compliance and for assistance on whatever work they're doing. So that may be something that a couple of people would want to do. It's something that would be an ongoing project. And I think we would definitely get results of that over the course of the year to find out exactly how things are going. And, you know, we're looking into it. We're inquiring about different operations. And we might get some feedback on that a little bit sooner than others. With the well, like mine, for example, the electronic materials for the boards. That's something we would have to take a look into, and it's something, a study, so it's something we would have to look into for down the road. It's something we couldn't do in a couple of weeks. Mr. Berthium first, and then I'll get you, Mr.
I'll just say that I think the electronic agendas and things like that is a definite for me, that I would love to see that, whether it be that, you know, we're each given a iPad, or whether, I mean, I have an iPad, so, certainly can utilize it, but it seems to me that there's a lot of, I get the agenda on email now. I print out the things that I want to discuss, but then I get here and there's a second copy already here because it needs to be here in case I didn't have it. So I do believe that we could probably save the town quite a bit of money by going paperless with some of these things. And I guess I just have to hear if there's any reasons why we want to do that.
Mrs. Goodrich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I would definitely want to, if we were to move forward with looking at this, and I guess it would be getting information to see if we wanted to move forward with electronic packets, but both of them, both of them, the implementation of remote participation and electronic packets, certainly we do have to get information from the Attorney General's office regarding, so once you have an iPad and you're using that for your selectmen's work, I believe everything on that iPad is subject to the public records request. So just so members understand, like whatever we're using it for is just for selectmen's business. You can't use an iPad for anything else because it's subject to the public records request. And also the implementation of the remote participation. I just think we would need to get additional information from the Attorney General's office with the open meeting law to see what we can do in that.
Okay, I think that's a good point. I think that, if we want to make that a goal, we could look into it and find out exactly what steps we would have to take in order to do that. Mr. Carpenter.
I'm going to ask the board to give me a meeting to think about this because there are so many interesting ones. I can't really say that I want to say we're going to take 10, knowing that A, I may not be here to help you. B, there's a new member who, in fairness to them, shouldn't be held, and I mention this, I think, every year, but we should set these policies after an election because it isn't fair to the new member to then have one whole year of their term dedicated to potentially a departing member's goal. We should really be looking at the election. We should be giving that new member the opportunity. Now, I've heard, well, that's a lot to ask. Oh, the new member is not going to know. The new member. I think we sell these individuals short by suggesting that people just decide on a whim to run for an office. I think people typically, although I have certainly seen some people who don't have an agenda or any sort of motivating factor, I think they're fairly rare. But the people that I've come into contact with who've run for office, they do try and educate themselves ahead of time. So in fairness to them, they should be given an opportunity to set the goals that they want, especially in their first year. I came in and we had 3 goals, and to my mind, I don't even remember if we accomplished them or we didn't, but in fairness to new members, we should really be giving them an opportunity, and instead of making a decision for them that is going to be so overwhelming, that it's going to be so impossible for them to possibly grasp this job, they're going to learn, like we all have, over the 3 years. You may have come in with a knowledge of government, you may have come in with a whole host of skill sets, but then you get in and you realize that there are laws, there are requirements, there are other parties that you have to not only give respect to, but give them the opportunity to speak first on a subject. So, for me, I appreciate all the work that's been put in, and maybe in future, because we're not going to change the policy today, if we could all submit something ahead of the meeting so that we can have a chance to digest it. Because I'm coming in, I'm hearing a lot of interesting things that, we'd all probably like to see, but I can't make a decision, these are the top 3, these are the top 5. I'd really like to think about them, get a list of them, and just look them over and maybe do a little research on my own and see which one's going to be achievable in a year, which one's probably going to take a little longer. So that's my request.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Goodrich?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I appreciate Mr. Carpenter's comments and have no issue with holding these for a week, 2 weeks. But just a couple of comments. In respect to what we've done in the past, we're actually late setting our goals. So they're generally not done just before the election. They're actually done in February, which may still be an issue, in regards to a new member. But if we're going to look at this, and I'm a firm believer that you have to have goals and they have to be attainable and they have to have a time frame. So if we're looking to do this, then if we're going to hold it for another 2 weeks, we may look to change our timeline at this point to goals for a fiscal year and adopt these goals for July 1 through June 30. At least everyone's on the same page. It's a year. We're not now in May setting goals that we expect to attain by December, because we in the past have always looked at the calendar year, not a year. And like I said, we're already late setting these goals. So I personally, under discussion, would have no issues with changing the time frame, because we are so late in setting the goals. And I think this board needs to be held accountable to themselves, is look at setting goals for the fiscal year. And Mrs. Brotherton, I will bring yours forward at a later date, but maybe set attainable goals, decide over the next couple of meetings how many goals we want to have, and then set a time frame for those attainable goals. And I would recommend making it the fiscal year.
Okay. Okay, anybody got any discussion, any comments? Mr. Berthium?
That's an excellent idea, because it does incorporate both Mr. Carpenter's point and Mrs. Goodrich's point, and it gives us the ability to hit the ground running July 1 as opposed to trying to play catch-up. So I think that's excellent.
Okay. Okay, has anybody got anything else? Okay.
And I certainly don't mean to say that I wouldn't consider your goals. I think your goals are very interesting. I just want time to think about it.
Well, I guess, Sharon, have you got a list of what we've discussed here tonight? Okay. Then I guess what we'll do is we will, I'll have Sharon put those together and maybe send those out in an email to everybody on the board and let them take a look at it, and we can discuss it for the meeting on May 8th, if that's good for the board.
I would suggest following Mrs. Goodrich's lead and say, let's do it to the 22nd.
On which?
May 22nd.
May 22nd, okay.
And then we can, the chair or the vice chair certainly can reach out to the new members and let them know this is on the boil.
Okay.
Office, depending on everybody.
All right, that's fine, but I guess what I'm still going to do is I will have Sharon email out all these suggestions now, so we have them on record, and then we can discuss those and add on as we wish from new members that may be coming on, because May 22nd will be our organization for the 2018 year.
And just
It's also
put
our
down the
regular
tabled
meeting.
items.
Yep, we can keep that on the tabled items, yep. Okay, is anybody got anything else on these? Again, go online and take a look at some of the other towns with policies and goals, and you'll sit with a smile on your face that Auburn has gone leaps and bounds over some of these others, and we thank you to the administration for that. Thank you, Eddie, and thank you to Julie, and for all those responsible around town, our employees, department heads. We're doing very, very well. Thank you very much for that tonight. Okay. Let's see. Okay, now we have update on the subcommittee on recognition of board and commission members. That was a meeting that was posted for last Saturday that Dan and I attended at the library. And we came up with a discussion on what something that the board had discussed from some time ago about recognition of, employees and retirees and board and committee members. So Dan, I think I'll turn that over to you and let you start the discussion, if you will.
So anyways, we did meet last Saturday, and we owe a great debt to Mrs. Brotherton, because I know you've worked very hard on the policy, And it's actually, the more I look at it, the more I like it. So the devil's in the details as to how to implement it. And unfortunately, this is one of the accountables that we all kind of, I did mention this to the manager in February or March when I met with her, and obviously I wasn't aware of the month of May coming up so fast, but apparently it comes up at the same time every year, but apparently my clock was a little left behind in the prior year. So the chair and I discussed having it in September. Some ideas that we had were potentially having some photographs, reaching out to different groups and seeing if we could get some photographs for that year or years past. I don't think we really specified, but I think either one would be good to try and get a dialogue going. Having a PowerPoint or some way to have a name scroll of every person who's currently serving, so I thought that was a pretty good idea. On a Monday night, on a non-meeting night, obviously, so that people could get here, work schedules being what they are, and that would also give staff who work with these various people an opportunity to come and socialize outside of, if they so chose, outside of, the usual settings. So those were a few ideas that we came up with. We were not decided on whether we would still do honorees. Even though I know the policy is kind of specific, we can set that, but so I think the first order of business would be to get the board's agreement that we schedule something for September, or we postpone this to a time in September so that we can plan the event and gather the information we need.
As Dan had mentioned, a couple of things that we looked at is sometimes when you have, at the firehouse, we've had different events down there, and pictures are thrown up on the wall and saying, oh, geez, I remember this, and oh, look who that was, and he shows up and they start to talk, so it's the conversation begins, and I think that's more of a recognition for members than to say, Lionel, thank you for all your time here, and we appreciate it, and here's your piece of paper. And I think sometimes when you have a discussion and you recognize and people talk and say, oh, geez, you remember, and you just invited to come to something like that, sometimes it means a lot more for that instead of having that piece of paper handed to you and say, you know what, good job. And I don't take that away, because I would like to say great job to anybody that with boards, commissions, retirees, employees, current employees, what have you. And I think that's something we should always say anyway, that they're doing a great job. But I think to have them come over and you honor people, if you forget somebody, that person would feel that much. But if you could invite all the people that you could think of, as far as contacting your boards, your committees, and let the chairs go back and probably give you a list of the people that were there before. Get it out to them, let them know it's available, and then let everybody come and just enjoy each other's company. I think that's real recognition, and that's, I think, would be definitely a worthwhile thing. And that's one of the things we had talked about with, the committee meeting.
If I may, we also talked about speakers. So the town manager would be one, the chair of the board would be one, and then we discussed about having other chairs of committees coming in and speaking on issues. I think that would be meaningful. So we wanted to bring the discussion back to you all and ask for forgiveness and permission to give us a little more time and so that we can do it correctly.
Mrs. Goodrich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So thank you for the work you did on this. Yes, I mean, I agree. It would probably be best to move this to September, since we're a week out of the first week in May. And love all of these ideas here. And we now have time to look at what we want to do because we are going to move it to September. But I agree that, all of this information, maybe for the first time we do it, because you can kind of play catch up with everything. But I think an annual recognition should be to recognize, again, whether it's fiscal or calendar year, to recognize people from that previous year. You recognize people from 2015 who, may have retired or may have left a board or commission or may have 25 years or 30 years. We talked about milestones. But I think, at doing it the first year, and we can continue, you can continue this in the subcommittee, doing it the first year, yes, this big event, but I think the intent of it was to recognize people for the previous year or people who have gone. So again, for discussion, whether we do it by calendar year, by fiscal year, because it makes more sense, with the town elections. Then you take away from the May event, certainly, which is the goal of recognizing Public Service Week. So certainly I support September, and I just think that we need some more discussion as to how we're going to move forward with this.
Okay. I'm open for suggestions, and you can call me with suggestions, and when we meet with the subcommittee again, we'll post that, and then we'll discuss it. Mrs. Brotherton.
I think the board just came up with another goal.
Just a continuation of an existing goal.
Now, that's a good point.
Yes, so I would make the motion that we schedule something in September for recognition of volunteers and...
Okay, and we'll have further subcommittee
Yes.
meetings to discuss what we want to do from there after hearing a little bit more input from the board tonight.
I'll second Mr. Carpenter's motion.
Okay, so the motion has been made and seconded for September and further discussion. Is there any other questions or comments? Being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay. Let's get back to where I was here. Okay.
Town manager item.
Now we have the town manager items. First, we have the discussion of proposed stop sign at the intersection of Prospect Street and Booth Road by the DPW director. And he is not with us tonight, but I'll turn this over to Mr. Casanova.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the town engineer does apologize for not being available tonight, but he is sick, and I think it's in his best interest and our best interest that he get well as soon as possible. The neighbors have raised a concern relative to a traffic safety issue over at the intersection of Booth Road and Prospect Street. I think our town engineer does recognize the need for a stop sign in that location as a result of that. So the Board of Selectmen would need to schedule a public hearing scheduled for May 22nd so we can meet the 2-week advertising requirement in doing that. So we are proposing that the board vote to schedule a public hearing at their meeting on May 22nd.
Okay.
Make a motion, we schedule a hearing for May 22nd at 7:10.
At 7:10?
7:10.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So May 22nd, 7:10 for a hearing for the proposed stop sign intersection of Prospect and Booth Road. Okay, next we have update on the RFPs for the elementary schools. Mr. Casanova.
Just to notify the board that the bids have been extended as a result of some questionings from prospective bidders. It has been extended to May 8th at 12 noon. So we're giving all the prospective bidders advance notice as a result of some of the questions and addendums that we had to change, proper notifications that would allow for that information to flow to all those interested and for them to adjust their bids for that May 8th deadline.
Okay. Have there been any received to date?
No.
No, okay.
No. I believe 16, last update I received is 16 bids have been sent out.
Okay. All right, well, look forward to seeing what you get for responses on that and see where we go with it. Any other questions on it, comments? Okay. The Economic Development Plan, presentation by the consultant to the board on May 8th. Mr. Casanovich.
So I think we tried to get this before the board prior to May 8th, but for a number of reasons. I know one agenda item was just so heavy that it wouldn't have offered enough time for this consultant to present the plan. That being said, Dan Hodge, the consultant for the town, will be here on your May 8th meeting to make that presentation before the board.
Okay. All right. I guess what I just want to go back to, we have a hearing on May 8th at 7:30, so that presentation will be given, probably right after, with the start of the meeting.
So it's normally under the presentation portion of the agenda, which is at the beginning of the meeting.
All right, great. Okay, any questions, comments? Okay. The HMEP grant application, we want to vote to authorize the filing and acceptance of funds. Mr. Casanovich.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this is an annual application that the town applies for. It's a hazardous material emergency preparedness grant. Historically, a lot of these grant dollars go to our SERP program or for hazardous waste type supplies and issues. This is just a agenda item seeking the authorization for the town manager to file and accept funds if awarded to the town of Auburn. So we'll be looking for a vote.
Okay. Mrs. Brotherton.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we authorize our town manager, Ms. Jacobson, to authorize the filing and acceptance of funds for the HMEP grant application.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, motion been made and seconded. Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And thank you, Eddie. We have no tabled items tonight. Has anybody from the board got anything tonight? Okay, no, any public comments? Mr. Page.
Page, 90 Old Common Road, Auburn. As you're discussing your goals, I noticed a lot of it was geared towards businesses. I didn't hear anything about resident taxes. I didn't hear anything about seniors. I didn't hear anything about the residents themselves. I guess maybe, I don't know if I didn't hear something or it's just an oversight, but I think, it's always nice to help out the businesses, don't get me wrong, but not on the backs of our taxpayers. Our taxpayers live here, and they deserve breaks too somewhere. You're talking about building this, building that. You got a senior center that needs an addition added on to it for the seniors. Does anybody bring that up? No. There is just so many other things. The town is about people. People live in this town, live in it, day to day. And all I hear is about business. Oh, we can do this for business. We can do that for business. I'm sorry. I believe you need business to a point, but you can't do it on the back of the taxpayers, the seniors. Handicapped people. You don't hear anything on stuff like that. Maybe you don't consider it as a goal, but if I was on a board of selectmen, I sure would make it a goal, or work to make it a goal through the committee. And I would thank Mr. Holstrom for at least saying something in one of his goals, I believe it was, where he was talking about people that can't make it here to the meetings, what you can do for them. At least somebody said something about our people. We need to address the residents, the seniors, the taxpayers need breaks. We can't keep doing it on the back of the taxpayers. I know I pay taxes, and I know it's hard, And every time we have classification lately, in the last, say, 5 years, the business has been getting more of a break than the residents, because you want to make it classification the same. But it's not helping the taxpayers, the residents, because it keeps going up anyway. It goes up every year, whether you give them a break or not. And you're giving it to the business. And all I hear tonight is business, business, business. We gotta take care of our people in the town that pay the taxes, our seniors. You go up, I don't know how many people go up to senior center, but how many have gone up there and talked to people and see what's going on up there? You know, I don't see you people up there. I volunteer my time because I believe in them. I believe in our people. I believe in helping people. I may not be in the best position to do things, and I do get upset for the reasons that I believe in. And I don't back down because I believe in them. I will never stop believing in our taxpayers. And I do, like I said before, you do need to help the businesses, but you can't keep cutting the throats of our residents. I didn't hear one word of any of you saying what you're going to do for the residents tonight. As I said, except Mr. Holstrom came up about people getting here and stuff. What you can do about that. But that's something. That's the only thing I really get out of what you guys said other than business. And I'm going to stop it there for now. I just want to say, other thing I want to say is I want to thank Mrs. Brotherton for being on the Board of Selectmen, doing what she did, working in this town, trying to make things better. I think you got a good heart. We do disagree on a lot of issues, but as far as I'm concerned, you're a good person. You have a good heart. You care about the people in this town. You care about the seniors. You care about the excuse me, people in the housing. And we're not always going to agree, and we're not always going to disagree. But you did a good service for this town, and I want to thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, can I comment on that?
yes.
Just because so much was said, I just want to talk about our goals, and I did, open my paper to check them. Really, Mrs. Brotherton's goals, educate the residents, educate residents. One of Mr. Berthium's goals, focus on the safety concern for the residents of town. My comments about ensuring that businesses are in compliance, that's for the residents, because most of the people that bring concerns to the building inspector are calls from residents, and regarding seniors and veterans, we adopted a policy this year to expand the tax breaks for seniors as well as veterans. To say that we haven't done anything for the veterans, the goals of the Board of Selectmen are supposed to be goals that are under their jurisdiction, that are attainable. Certainly, I think that we've done a lot over the last year. There was one comment about continuing the commerce in town, and that was to fill vacancies. But other than that, I'm looking at these goals, and it was all for the betterment of our residents. So thank you for allowing me to comment.
Okay, the other thing is also that we have 4 warrant articles on the town meeting warrant, items 21, 22, 23, and 24. And it's abatement for residents for taxes for several reasons, which I won't go through them all here tonight.
No, you don't have to. I know what they are.
Okay, they are on the warrant, and it's something that has already been passed through this board. It's not a goal. It was a discussion by board members. There was a suggestion one time before to look into abatements for those. The other things is we haven't taxed to the 2.5% 1% in 7 years. And this year, I believe it's less than 1%, I think 0.9%, I believe it is. So for the past 7 years, we haven't hurt the taxpayers any. I think our administration has done, done yeoman's work on taking care of this and being sure that that goes forward. And the school budget is also up 4.5%. And so that means that the town residents are taken care of, the town residents, the kids in the system, they're being taken care of by educational processes. So for you to get up and say that the board hasn't got goals, we may not have goals that we've discussed here tonight, but we've had goals, we've discussion that we've had over the course of the year to make things better for residents, not only for residents, for businesses. And I don't want to go back and forth with you tonight, Mr. Page, but you did bring a few things to us, but I want to be sure that you understood that because we didn't discuss them tonight doesn't mean that we haven't discussed them over the course of the year. Mr. Page.
And my point was that you did not bring them up at all tonight. That's the only point I made tonight. I mean, there's things that have been done, but the things that need to be done more that is not being brought up. You're talking about your goals tonight, and I didn't hear one thing other than what you said, Mr. Holstrom, and I'll admit to that you did say something about people that can't make it here. Other than that, it was all business tonight.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Page.
Thank you.
Chairman, if I could just comment on the tax split, because it is something we, with the exception of Mr. Berthium, who wasn't here prior to last year, for the last 2 out of 3 years, we've held the split the same. So I agree with you. The boards in the past have gone, I think, rather severely towards. We went from a factor of 155, we're at, I believe, a factor of 120 today in 8 years. But I also want to point out that Mrs. Goodrich, not too many years ago, was the sole member of the board to vote against that. So there was a major shift. I think it was 5 points. And Mrs. Goodrich was the only selectman up here, because I think she was the only one on the board at the time, who did vote against that. So I appreciate your comments, and I think they're food for thought, but I do just want to be clear, because I am very proud that this board did stand with the residents. For 2 years, we said, we've gone too far, we've held it, we made a modest pushback in the last year. Obviously, we do the best that we can, but we don't set the tax rates either. Town meeting does that. We just apportion it among the classes. So I think as we look at our budgets, all of our budgets, I don't see a lot of town meeting members getting up and objecting to the budget or asking questions on the budget, and that's troubling to me, because I've heard people, smart people, say to me, well, the Finance Committee and Ed does such a great job, there shouldn't be any questions. And I couldn't disagree more. Yes, Ed does a great job. Yes, the Finance Committee does a good job, but as town meeting members, and you were a town meeting member, I was, many of the people up here were town meeting members, we need to ask questions at town meeting, because they set the taxes, they decide, it's their budget. It doesn't matter who writes it. Town meeting is the body that decides how much your taxes are going to go up, because they're deciding on spending. And so I would hope that in the year ahead we'd get some precinct meetings to give them more information. That's something that we did as a board as well, was ask the administration to give them information ahead of time, especially for the all-important May town meeting, which has all the budget stuff. They get it much earlier so they can digest it. Last year we wanted something for the volunteers. That's for people. So if you didn't hear it tonight, I think, as has already been said, that is our focus. The fact that there is a housing subcommittee that we're doing, that we've pursued grants so that hopefully we can get, whether it's workforce housing for those young families who might work for the town or might just want to live in and enjoy our great amenities here, or our seniors. We are looking at it. It may not be as fast as we like, but we do concern ourselves with the people. agree with you. At times, we spend a lot of time talking about the business community. But I will say, and I know you knock on doors as well, a lot of people talk about the vacancies. A lot of people are concerned about the Auburn Mall. A lot of people are concerned. I went to a meeting for the Drury Square overlay district, and most of the discussion was, what are we going to do now that brick and mortar is being pushed out in favor of online? So much of our budget and our income comes from those business properties. So we could be in a real bad way if we don't spend some time thinking about, as commerce has changed dramatically, which none of us that's nothing new, but it's very serious for the budget, and I'd like to see us get away from relying solely on property taxes, because I think it is a very regressive tax. And, I know Governor Patrick, that was one of his things, and he spent 8 years and we didn't get it. So, it's something to keep in mind, though, to try and agitate for. But thank you for, obviously bringing some good ideas to us and your service, because we need excellent volunteers and people to bring us ideas too. It isn't just all the 5 of us coming up thinking great thoughts. Sometimes we do need people to come up and say, did you think of this? Because we can't be everywhere, but we try, so I appreciate your comments.
Okay, thank you. Anybody got anything else? Being none, I have minutes from the February 13th, 2017 meeting. Any questions, concerns, errors, omissions? Being none, I'll accept them as presented. And a motion, please.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you, and good night.